Have you ever paused to think about what life might look like when the people you love are no longer around? As we age, the prospect of loneliness transforms from a fleeting thought into an unavoidable reality we all must face. In today's video, we'll explore the emotional journey of aging, the challenges of loneliness, and the incredible power of human connection and companionship. You'll hear a moving personal story about David Thompson, a man who navigates the trials of growing older, copes with the loss of loved ones, and discovers unexpected connections that bring new meaning to his days. This is not merely about the loneliness that comes with aging, but about how to confront it, prepare for the inevitable changes of life, and find fulfillment and purpose during the later years. By the end of this video, you'll gain powerful insights to help you or someone you care about better navigate the challenges of aging. We'll discuss the importance of self-sufficiency, maintaining dignity and independence, and embracing companionship in ways that suit your life. Whether you're redefining your future or trying to understand the emotional aspects of aging, David's story offers lessons that can change how you approach this stage of life. Stay with us until the end, because what you'll discover could fundamentally change the way you see aging, helping you appreciate what truly matters in this journey of life. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support means so much to me, and if you find this video helpful, consider liking it and sharing it with others. If you enjoy this topic, please comment 1. If not, comment 0, and let me know how I can improve and create even better content for you. Your feedback is invaluable and helps me grow this channel for all of you. Now, let's dive in. My name is David Thompson, and I'm 62 years old. Before retiring, I worked as a civil servant for over half my life. However, due to a series of corporate reforms, I was forced into early retirement. Fortunately, I had been diligent about saving money over the years, so I wasn't overly worried about my finances. My home used to be lively, filled with the sounds of my family. My son, Ryan, and my daughter, Emily, led busy lives with their own families, but they still visited often. A few years ago, my wife, Carol, passed away after a long illness, and as time went on, my children's visits became less frequent. One evening, I sat alone on the couch, surrounded by the quiet emptiness of my house. A sharp pang of loneliness pierced through me as I looked around at the silence that had taken over my once busy home. Just then, the phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice sounded hurried, as if he was juggling several things at once. "Dad, you're staying home tonight, right? I've got some rest to catch up on, so I won't be able to make it over today." Hearing his rushed words left me feeling a little lonely, but I understood the demands of his busy life. I didn't want to burden him, so I responded with a gentle smile in my voice. "Go ahead and take care of yourself, son. I'm okay here alone." After hanging up, I let out a long sigh. It felt as though I had been forgotten, left behind by the world. In the past, my days were filled with work and family. Now, after retirement, losing Carol, and with Ryan and Emily preoccupied with their own lives, my sense of isolation grew deeper each day. The next day, my neighbor and longtime friend Tom stopped by to visit. He was around my age, and we'd known each other for years. As we sat down, Tom asked, "David, are you alone at home these days?" I nodded silently, feeling the weight of his question. Tom sighed deeply and said, "Same here. My wife and kids are busy with their lives, so I spend most days alone. It's tough, isn't it?" His words struck a chord in my heart. Loneliness wasn't just my experience. It was something many people face as they grow older. Tom continued, "We need to think about the future. What are you going to do if you end up all by yourself? His question pierced through me, lingering in my mind like an unshakable echo. The thought of living completely alone, with no one to talk to or share my life with, haunted me. A few days later, my daughter Emily came to visit, bringing along my young granddaughter. I was excited and had prepared Emily's favorite childhood dishes, hoping for a warm and relaxed visit. But as soon as she walked in, her voice was hurried. "Dad, I can only stay for a short while today. I need to pick up Mark in a bit," she said, setting her things down quickly. Seeing the rush in her demeanor, a sense of sadness welled up inside me. Hiding my disappointment, I smiled and said, "It's okay, sweetie. Go on and take care of yourself. I'm fine." Emily ate quickly, gathered her things, and left in a hurry. As I watched her walk out the door, my heart sank. The house, which once echoed with life and laughter, now felt like an empty shell. That night, as I lay in bed unable to sleep, my mind replayed the events of the day. The question that Tom had asked me, "What will you do if you end up alone?" repeated itself in my thoughts like a haunting refrain. I whispered quietly to myself, "I can't keep going on like this. I need to start preparing for the future." A few days later, I invited Tom for a walk in the nearby park. As we sat on a bench watching the world pass by, I finally spoke up. "You know, you were right about everything. I've been thinking about it a lot. At my age, if I end up truly alone, how will I manage?" Tom nodded solemnly. "I've been thinking the same thing," he said. "We can't wait until it's too late to make changes. We have to plan." He paused for a moment before adding, "The first thing we need to consider is money. We need to make sure we have enough to live comfortably, especially when medical expenses and other costs start piling up." I agreed wholeheartedly. Finances were the foundation of a stable life, and without careful planning, aging could become even more challenging. Then Tom added, "Another thing is self-sufficiency. Without a spouse, and with our children busy with their own lives, we can't always rely on them. We need to stay active, physically and socially. Regular exercise, joining clubs, and getting out of the house are key to maintaining our health and well-being." His words struck a chord with me. I realized I had been so focused on my children's lives, seeing them as my main source of connection, that I had neglected my own quality of life. I found myself spending nearly every day at home, glued to the television, with little interaction beyond the occasional phone call. If I continued living like this, boredom and isolation would inevitably take a toll on my physical and emotional health. Determined to make a change, I promised myself that I would start exercising every morning in the park and visiting the local community center in the evenings. There I could play chess, chat with others, and rediscover a sense of connection. It didn't take long for my life to gain some color again. I started making new friends at the community center, engaging in conversations and playing chess with other seniors. The routine brought a sense of purpose back into my days. But despite these new connections, loneliness continued to linger, especially at night. Every evening I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind wandering to the same questions. If I end up all alone, who will take care of me? Who will be there if I fall ill? These thoughts gnawed at me, making the nights feel endless. The idea of finding a companion crossed my mind more than once, but I hesitated. It felt too soon after Carol's passing, as though I would be betraying her memory. Yet, as the days went by, the loneliness became harder to ignore. It was a quiet, persistent ache that I couldn't shake. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I decided to share my feelings with Tom during one of our regular walks. Tom listened patiently, nodding as I spoke. "I get it," he said. "After my wife passed, I had the same thoughts. For people our age, it's not about finding someone to lean on. It's about finding someone to talk to, someone to share the little moments with. It's about companionship, not dependence. His words resonated deeply. "You're right," I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "It's not about needing someone to take care of me. It's about easing the loneliness." Slowly, my resistance began to fade. I opened myself up to the idea of companionship again, allowing myself to believe that perhaps it was time to heal the loneliness I had been carrying for so long. One day, during a gathering at the community center, I met an elderly woman named Nancy. She was kind-hearted and optimistic, with a zest for life that was contagious. Nancy lived alone, her children residing far away. From the moment we started talking, there was an instant connection. We quickly became regular companions, meeting often to chat, take walks, or share meals. Nancy's presence brought warmth and lightness to my days, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of joy returning to my life. Our bond grew stronger over time. We cooked meals together, went grocery shopping, and spent quiet afternoons watching TV. Although our relationship wasn't officially recognized by marriage, it felt very much like a partnership. Then one day, I fell ill with a high fever. Nancy stayed by my side, worrying over me like I hadn't seen anyone do in years. She helped me take my medicine, called Ryan to inform him about my condition, and even insisted on taking care of me until I recovered. When Ryan rushed over and saw Nancy tending to me so attentively, he looked surprised. "Dad, why didn't you call us sooner? If you need anything, you can always count on us," he said. Smiling, I reassured him, "I didn't want to burden you. You all have your own busy lives, and besides, Nancy is taking such good care of me. There's no need to worry." Although Ryan was still uneasy, he respected my wishes. Before leaving, he asked Nancy to keep a close eye on me and call him if anything changed. As I lay in bed that night, watching Nancy move around the house, my heart felt a warmth it hadn't experienced in years. Having someone in your later years, someone who truly cares for you, is a rare blessing. Our relationship deepened over time. It wasn't the passionate love of youth, but rather a calm and enduring companionship that brought me peace and security. We supported one another in ways that felt natural, spending quiet, fulfilling days together. But as time went on, challenges began to surface. One day, Nancy received a call from her son, who shared some big news. He was getting married and wanted her to come live with his family. Hearing this news weighed heavily on me, though I tried my best to remain composed. "It's wonderful that your son is getting married," I said. "Living with family is a good thing." Nancy seemed uncertain, her voice gentle as she replied, "I've gotten used to living here. I'm not sure how much I can help if I go back." She looked at me with such sincerity, as if seeking reassurance. My heart was torn. After a long pause, I sighed and said, "Your son needs you. It's a mother's responsibility. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine on my own." I forced a smile, trying to mask the sadness I felt inside. After days of reflection, Nancy finally made her decision. She would return to her son's home. I walked with her to the bus stop, trying to stay strong, but every step felt heavier than the last. As the bus pulled away, I stood there in silence, watching until she disappeared from view. The familiar presence I had grown so accustomed to was suddenly gone, leaving me alone once more. My home felt vast and cold again, and the silence was deafening. Perhaps this was fate, I thought. It seemed I would need to come to terms with the loneliness that comes with aging. After Nancy left, tears welled up in my eyes. My world felt smaller, shrinking back into solitude. My life returned to its previous rhythm, exercising in the park, chatting at the community center, and waiting for occasional calls from Ryan and Emily. Though my children cared deeply for me, They had their own lives and families to manage. Frequent visits were impossible. I didn't want to burden them, so I always told them, "I'm okay." But deep down, the loneliness grew stronger with each passing day. One afternoon at the community center, I overheard a group of elderly residents discussing nursing homes. Their conversation sparked a thought in my mind. Perhaps it was time for me to start planning for my future. The very next day, I called Ryan to share my thoughts. There was a pause on the other end of the line before he finally responded, "Dad, do you really want to go into a nursing home? It just sounds so cold." I chuckled softly, trying to ease the tension. "It's not about being cold, son. I need a place where I can live comfortably and be surrounded by people my age. You and Emily have your own lives, and I can't expect you to always be around. In a nursing home, I can get professional care and companionship. It might be better than staying here, alone and isolated." Ryan hesitated but said he would discuss it with Emily. A few days later, they both visited me. Their faces were serious, filled with concern. Emily spoke first, her voice soft but full of emotion. "Dad, we understand it's tough being on your own, but are you sure a nursing home is the right choice? We're worried you might feel even more lonely there." Their worry warmed my heart, but I stayed firm in my decision. "You don't need to worry about me. This is something I've thought about carefully. I need a place where I can live in peace and comfort. Nursing homes aren't as bad as people think. Plus, I don't want to be a burden to you or your families." Ryan and Emily exchanged uncertain glances, but eventually they agreed to respect my choice. "If this is what you've decided, Dad, we'll support you," Ryan said, "but we'll make sure to visit often so you won't feel lonely." Their words lifted a weight from my shoulders. A few months later, I moved into a city nursing home. The facility was beautiful, with landscaped gardens and spacious common areas. It didn't take long for me to start adjusting to my new environment. On my first day, I took a walk through the garden and met Henry, a friendly resident who welcomed me warmly. He showed me around, introduced me to others, and helped me settle in. A few months later, I moved into a city nursing home. The facility was beautiful, with landscaped gardens and spacious common areas. It didn't take long for me to start adjusting to my new environment. On my first day, I took a walk through the garden and met Henry, a friendly resident who welcomed me warmly. He showed me around, introduced me to others, and helped me settle in. That night, as I lay in bed gazing out at the peaceful night sky, a sense of calm washed over me. Though I was still getting used to this new chapter of my life, I no longer felt like I had to face loneliness entirely on my own. Over the next few months, I adjusted to life in the nursing home. The daily routines brought structure to my days, regular meals, light exercise, and time spent with my new friends. Henry, who had become a close companion, often invited me to play chess or simply chat in the common area. Life here was quieter, simpler, and surprisingly peaceful. My heart felt lighter compared to the turbulent days I had experienced before. Ryan and Emily called frequently to check in, asking how I was settling in and if I needed anything. Each time I reassured them, "Dad's doing just fine. There's nothing to worry about." But one afternoon, everything changed. I was sitting outside in the garden, enjoying the warmth of the sun, when my phone rang. It was Ryan, and his voice trembled with urgency. "Dad, it's Misato. She was in a car accident. They've taken her into surgery. You need to come to the hospital right away." My heart sank. Misato, my daughter-in-law, was always so strong and full of life. Now, fear gripped me as I struggled to process the news. "What happened? Is she going to be okay?" I stammered. Ryan's voice tightened with worry. "We don't know yet, Dad. Just get here as soon as you can." I immediately asked the nursing home staff to arrange transportation. During the drive to the hospital, my mind was flooded with memories of Misato, her laughter, her kindness, and the way she had become such an integral part of our family. When I arrived, Ryan and Emily were waiting outside the operating room. Ryan led me to a chair, his face pale and anxious. "The doctors are doing everything they can, but her condition is critical," he explained. The red light above the operating room door seemed to mock my helplessness as I prayed silently for her recovery. Every minute felt like an eternity. Finally, the doors opened and the doctor stepped out. His expression was grim. "She sustained severe injuries," he said. "We're doing everything possible, but you need to prepare for the worst." The weight of his words hit me like a tidal wave. My legs felt weak and my chest tightened as the reality of the situation sank in. When the nurse wheeled Misato out of the operating room, her face was pale, her breathing shallow. I rushed to her side, clutching her hand. "Misato, hang in there," I whispered, my voice trembling. "We promised to face life together. Don't leave us." Her eyelids fluttered open briefly, and she tried to speak, but no words came out. A single tear slid down her cheek. That night, Misato's condition worsened rapidly. The doctors informed us that her injuries were too severe and that we should prepare for the inevitable. I couldn't leave her side. The thought of her slipping away while I wasn't there was unbearable. I held her hand tightly, feeling the frailty of her once strong grip. As dawn approached, Misato opened her eyes one last time. Her gaze was faint, her breaths shallow. With great effort she whispered, "Be happy, David." Her words broke me. Her hand went limp in mine, and I knew she was gone. The finality of her passing was a blow I wasn't prepared for. The days that followed were a haze of grief and emptiness. Returning to the nursing home felt like walking into a void. The joy I had once found in simple routines and the company of friends was now overshadowed by a profound sense of loss. My friends at the facility noticed the change in me. Henry, who had been so warm and welcoming, tried his best to lift my spirits. "David, we're here for you," he would say, sitting with me in the garden or inviting me to join a game of chess. But no words could ease the sorrow that weighed down my heart. Misato's absence was a constant reminder of how fragile and fleeting life could be. Ryan and Emily, sensing my deep sadness, began visiting me more often. They brought my grandchildren along, their laughter and energy a brief but welcome distraction. "Dad," Ryan said one afternoon as we sat together in the garden, "Misato wouldn't want you to stay like this. She'd want you to find joy again, to keep moving forward." I nodded, appreciating his words but knowing that the emptiness I felt was something only I could truly understand. "I know, son," I replied softly, "but healing takes time. Losing someone you love, especially at this stage of life, feels like losing a part of yourself. During the quiet nights, as you lay in bed listening to your heartbeat, you may realize that being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. You learn to trust your instincts and embrace the person you've become. Aging brings a deeper understanding of life. The confidence and passion of youth give way to wisdom, humility, and self-awareness. Though life's challenges often feel insurmountable, each hardship shapes us, making us stronger and more resilient. Even as we age, we come to terms with the fleeting nature of relationships and the complexities of love. I used to believe that love meant holding hands and walking through life side by side until the very end. But time has taught me that relationships often evolve or fade. Some connections are born out of habit, necessity, or circumstance rather than enduring affection. As the years go by, the line between the past, present, and future begins to blur. We question the true purpose of our lives and the depth of our connections with others. Memories, once vivid and full of meaning, can grow hazy with time. Yet, amidst these reflections, the meaning of life becomes clearer. We no longer cling to what we cannot change or waste energy on things that don't bring us peace. Acceptance becomes our ally, allowing us to focus on what truly matters. One afternoon, as I strolled through the nursing home garden, I noticed a new resident who seemed lost and unsure. His confusion and helplessness mirrored how I had felt when I first arrived. I approached him, gently placed my hand on his shoulder and said, "Welcome to the facility. Would you like to take a walk with me?" He looked up at me, nodded silently, and together we began walking down the garden path. We didn't exchange many words, but the quiet understanding between us was enough. In those moments, I realized that even in our solitude, we could offer one another silent support as we navigated the later stages of life. That night, as I lay in bed, memories of Nancy came flooding back. Her voice, her smile, and her care remained etched in my heart. Though she was no longer with me, her love continued to provide me with strength. Her presence had taught me to cherish every human connection, no matter how brief. The next morning, I stood in the nursing home garden, feeling the warmth of the sunlight on my face. It was a simple but profound moment that reminded me of an important truth. While nothing in this world is eternal, even fleeting moments of love and cherished memories can provide us with the strength to carry on. These moments become a guiding light, helping us find our way even during the darkest times. Inspired by the words of Haruki Murakami, I've come to understand that aging doesn't happen gradually, it slips by unnoticed. Days turn into years, and before you know it, life itself has quietly moved on. One day you might feel youthful and vibrant, but when you look in the mirror, you'll notice the first grey hairs, the subtle lines forming around your eyes, and the changes time has etched onto your face. Aging arrives not with a loud announcement, but with quiet inevitability. When you hear someone call you grandfather or grandmother for the first time, it can be jarring. It forces you to confront the reality of growing older. Some might try to resist it, saying, "I'm still young," but deep down, they know time moves forward regardless of our desires. As we age, we often speak less, not because we have nothing to say, but because we've learned that not every thought needs to be voiced. Among the many people we've known, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, how many truly understand the depths of our hearts? This realization teaches us that the only person who can truly understand us is ourselves. There are days when you may not feel like speaking at all. In the stillness of the night, with your eyes closed and your heartbeat steady, you'll find that being alone doesn't always mean being lonely. You stop worrying so much about what others think or say. Instead of being swayed by the opinions of others, you learn to trust your instincts and your own understanding of life. This shift brings a deeper sense of self-awareness and maturity. In youth, we are fearless, full of confidence, and driven by passion. But as we grow older, we begin to understand that life doesn't always unfold as we expect. Challenges and adversities become part of the journey, often leaving us feeling as though we're battling forces beyond our control. Despite this, when you've given your best effort, you can rest knowing there is nothing left to regret. You learn to respect yourself and appreciate your strengths. But with this self-respect comes humility, a quality that earns admiration and respect from others. Looking back, you'll notice how much you've changed. Sometimes it feels as though you've lost sight of who you once were, yet these changes make your heart stronger and your experiences richer. The most profound transformation, however, comes in how you understand love. Once I thought love meant holding hands and walking side by side through life forever. But as the years pass, you realize that many relationships are fleeting. Sometimes staying together isn't about love, it's about habit or necessity. Life moves forward, blurring the past, present and future. You begin to question who truly exists for whom. Even when you search your memories, they can feel distant and hazy. As time goes by, the meaning of life becomes clearer. What once seemed insurmountable now feels ordinary. You no longer criticize the things that once troubled you. Instead, you choose to walk away from anything that doesn't bring you peace. One afternoon, while walking in the garden, I noticed a new resident. He seemed lost in thought, his eyes reflecting confusion and helplessness. Emotions I recognized from my early days here. Without hesitation, I walked over to him, gently placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Welcome to the facility. Would you like to take a walk with me?" He looked at me, nodded silently, and together we began walking along the garden path. We didn't exchange many words, but there was an unspoken connection between us. It seemed he could sense my feelings, just as I could sense his. Elderly people often carry the weight of isolation, but here at least, we could share this journey. We walked side by side, offering each other quiet support as we navigated this stage of life. That night, as I lay in bed, thoughts of Nancy filled my mind. Her voice still echoed in my heart, her smile vivid in my memory. The care she had shown me became one of the most cherished parts of my life. Even though she was no longer here, the love she had given me continued to provide strength. As I closed my eyes, the weight of loneliness no longer felt as unbearable. Nancy's passing had left a deep void, but it also left behind a crucial lesson: to treasure every human connection. Whether it's family, friends, or even fleeting acquaintances, every bond is irreplaceable and worth valuing. The next morning, standing in the garden of the nursing home, I felt the warmth of the sun on my skin. It was a moment of peace, and I realized that while nothing in this world is eternal, even fleeting moments of love and cherished memories can carry us through life's darkest days. These fleeting moments become the foundation of our strength, a guiding light when the world feels heavy. As I reflected on my journey, I wanted to share something deeply meaningful with you, inspired by the words of Haruki Murakami. Many people think aging is a slow process, but in reality, time slips away unnoticed. Days turn into years, and before you know it, life has quietly moved on. Even if you feel young inside, there comes a day when you suddenly realize that youth has passed you by. The first gray hairs appear, wrinkles start to form, and the evidence of time becomes clear in your reflection. As the years pass, we grow older and begin to hesitate even to mention our age. The passing of time becomes something we fear. You reach a point where you realize that just as your parents grew older, you too are nearing that stage in life. When someone calls you grandfather or grandmother, it can catch you off guard. At first, you may not know how to respond, but eventually you come to accept it. Aging has arrived. Some might protest, but I'm still young. However, the moment those words leave your mouth, you may feel a sense of uncertainty. You realize that saying them is just a way to comfort yourself, but the reality of time passing remains. As those years accumulate, we begin to speak less, not because we have nothing to say, but because we understand that not everything needs to be said. Among the many friends, colleagues, and acquaintances we've had throughout our lives, how many of them truly understand our hearts? People are busy with their own lives, and it becomes harder to find someone who truly listens. When others don't understand, their comforting words can feel hollow, like empty gestures. At some point, you come to realize that silence often carries more meaning than endless conversation. The one person who truly understands you is yourself. There are days when you don't feel like speaking at all. In the quiet of the night, with your eyes closed and your heartbeat steady, you come to realize that being alone doesn't necessarily mean being lonely. You stop worrying so much about what others think or say. Instead of being swayed by their opinions or judgments, you learn to trust in your instincts and embrace the person you have become. As time passes, we all develop a deeper, more mature understanding of life. When we're young, we are fearless, full of energy, confidence, and passion. But as we grow older, we realize that life doesn't always unfold the way we expect. Challenges seem to follow us wherever we go, and sometimes it feels as though we're being beaten down by fate itself. We try our best, but eventually we realize that not everything is within our control. Even so, when you've given your all, you come to the peaceful realization that you have no regrets. You learn to respect yourself and embrace the parts of you that are worthy of pride. But with that self-respect comes humility. Choosing humility over arrogance makes you a person who is more respected and admired by others. When you look back on your life, you see how much you've changed, so much so that sometimes it feels as though you've lost touch with who you once were. As you age, your heart grows stronger and your experiences become richer. The most profound change, however, is in how you understand love. I used to think that love meant holding hands and walking together forever, side by side, until our hair turned grey. But as the years have passed, I've come to realize that many romantic relationships are in fact temporary. Sometimes staying together isn't about love, but about habit or necessity. And so life goes on. The past, present, and future blur together, and you start to wonder who truly exists for whom. Even when you search the depths of your memory, everything seems to fade and become hazy. As the years accumulate, the meaning of life becomes clearer. What you once couldn't accept or understand now seems ordinary. You no longer feel the need to criticize or judge it. If something no longer serves you, you simply walk away. That's all there is to it. One afternoon, while walking in the garden, I noticed a new resident who seemed lost in thought. His eyes were filled with confusion and helplessness, reminding me of myself when I first arrived here, uncertain of where I fit in. I walked over to him, gently placed a hand on his shoulder, and said, "Welcome to the facility. Would you like to take a walk with me?" He looked at me, nodded silently, and together we began walking down the garden path. We didn't exchange many words, but there was an unspoken understanding between us. It seemed he could sense my feelings too. Elderly people often feel isolated, and though the journey can be difficult, at least here we could walk together, side by side, offering each other quiet support as we moved through this final stage of life. As we reflect on the journey of aging, love, and the lessons life teaches us, I hope you found something in today's story that resonates with you. We've explored how relationships shape us, how we find strength in our memories, and how embracing loneliness doesn't have to mean living without connection. So, what have you learned from today's video? Is there a lesson that stood out to you, something you plan to carry forward in your own life? I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below, sharing one thing you've learned and how you will bring it into your own life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful conversations. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more valuable content your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.